a report on the aftermath of the elections in Tanzania of October 29th. It raises a lot of questions. And let's start with you, Hesbon. Because even when President William Ruto got an opportunity to stand and address the same forum, he did not counter that. He simply moved on. This is a president who said, this is a conversation we had with President William Ruto. Does it mean that even William Ruto, despite what we've seen in the last 2 years, that even he agrees, mikwaju upande hii, mikwaju upande ile?
I think coming hot in the heels of the Judge Justice Chande's report, it raises a lot of questions and issues that after such a landmark report that they did, a report that was based on an elaborate forensic analysis of what happened, because the chaos that happened in Tanzania were essentially chaos on the voting day. They were not post or pre. So there was a build-up pre-election, but on the voting day, they had, you know, a very turbulent period that probably interfered with the election. And it is not clear who was behind that, whether it is the government that engineered that so that they got their way with electoral malpractices, or it was the opposition. And I think when Tundu Lissu was acquitted, he said that he will remain behind bars until after the election so that he's not accused of anything. So looking at that very robust report, for once I think Tanzania provided Africa and the East African region with a template of how you can solve your issues through internal institutions and mechanism, landmark, including what would happen immediately after that report, how to deal with the victims, and then how to go for the perpetrators. And you expected the president of Tanzania to take that conversation forward, but I think it's a mark time, and you could easily tell from that function that our president was fairly uncomfortable, didn't respond to it, because, I mean, in that kind of a situation, how do you respond? You say that we didn't speak about it, or I agree with what we said. So I think our president was a bit diplomatic in shying off from that conversation. But having said that, I think it's also important to situate, you know, the Tanzanian democracy within the social construct that we have in Tanzania. Sometimes from 2019 up to 2023, we did a study on the state of innovation, the state of media viability in East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And there are 5 indicators of media viability. One of them is actually community and social cohesion. And what we found is that, in a sense, you see the way you sit in Kenya and the way the president is saying, wakikuja Tanzania wanachapa rungu, Kenya is a safe haven for Tanzanians. I don't think any Tanzanian who is running away from the authoritarian regime would come to Kenya and be battered. They would actually find a safe haven, because we are a lot more advanced as a society, we are a lot more conscious of the rights that we have, which is not the case in Tanzania. Because what we found in Tanzania is Tanzanians are actually very critical of the media that is overly against. Yet we've had instances where an activist from Tanzania was abducted in Kenya for her political involvement. We also saw Kiza Besigye kidnapped from Kenya. And you see, when presidents say we sat down and talked about these things. And that's what I'm saying. We've had very negative consequences to that. And I think one of the most consequential aftermath of you know, the arrest of Besigye and Tanzanian activists was the fact that it cost Raila Odinga the AUC chairmanship. It did, whether we like it or not. I mean, presidents are like, if this is happening in your country, how are you going to solve the problems of Africa? But what I was trying to say is this: Tanzania is a totally different, you know, social demographic. I mean, Tanzanians are different from Kenyans, and I think it is prudent that the president didn't respond. Even that phrase, kuchapa rungo, or whatever he said, as Kenyans, we might understand is clamping down on people. I don't think that is the interpretation you get from a typical Tanzanian. Because what they believe in, you know, coming from, you know, an ujamaa kind of leadership, they believe that the government is actually serving their interest. And essentially, anyone who is antagonizing the government is supposed to be dealt with at an individual level for the greater good. 518 people died. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's something that we need to put in context. And I have said in the past that where Kenya is, Tanzania will get here like 20, 25 years to come. And we need to understand them from that perspective. Yet even in our context, we're still reeling from the effects of June
25th, 2024. 2 years later, we still have people who are missing, bodies at all and all these things. So when two presidents sit down and one comes out and says, tumekubaliana, this is the kind of force we will use on either side of the border. Do you feel safe? Should we feel safe?
Contextually, we must peel this onion of democracy. Democracy, I mean, with tremendous respect, democracy, quintessentially understood, is a very good political concept. In terms of the realism that we live in the world today, democracy has been hijacked by the same cabal who sat in Berlin to cut up Africa, to divide Africa into their own exploitative pieces, which is why today France thrives on the Francophone money. And it's a shame that Kenya will be hosting a Francophone meeting to endorse that very exploitation, which is going on today. And if I were the president, I wouldn't host it. I would in fact tell France off and tell them that you cannot leave off the resources and the reaches of Africa. Why do I say that? As a background, Tanzania is very rich in resources. And because of that, and especially the rare earth minerals, the same cabal are out there using the instrumentality of democracy. And the political space for them is very important in order then to prop up whoever it is that they can use as a puppet in order to continue siphoning off the wealth and the resources that are in that particular geographical context, which is why today we have the riches in gold and rare earth minerals and even coal and so on and so forth. That cabal has come and held captive this president because Kenyans should be very rich today, given even the oil, and we spoke this some time ago, but they are not benefiting from it. Now take that to Tanzania. Tanzania was very, blessed to have Magufuli. And Magufuli was able then to contain that incursion into the pilfering and the theft of Tanzanian resources. Now, once you understand that international cabal, you have to ask yourself, as a Kenyan, excuse me, you are the president of this country, and you're telling me in December 2025, you dare expend 25 billion on an Israeli Spider missile launcher. Do we need 25 billion for a missile launcher? He is a puppet. Now, once you understand that international cabal and what they want, so you will have them using the political space to fund whatever it is, using the Open Society funds and using whatever other funds that they have, so that they can have the political atmosphere for them now to siphon the African resources. Suluhu did not succumb to that. Tundu Lissu, with tremendous respect to him, is, and his Chadema, is an instrumentality of that cabal. Because, yes, Tundu Lissu, with tremendous respect to him. And you even question his own political party, and you'll find that information.
Okay.
The funding was there for him available. How come it was eaten?
Okay.
How come it was swallowed up? There was no accountability. So if you're telling me about democracy in terms of Tundu Lissu, and that there is that siphoning of them, what if you assumed political power? Now,
you've thrown me off a bit, because even Tundu Lissu remained behind bars. If at all you're trying to suggest that he was behind the kind of
international cabal that wanted to get rid of Suluhu, because Suluhu has carried on the policies of Magufuli to ensure that the rare earth minerals, for instance, are not stolen and taken off by this cabal. And this cabal has gone off to the Congo, and they have met the same obstinate sort of resistance. Now, when they came here, and they wanted, of course, to do what they wanted to do, because, there are those who are going to disagree with me and tell me that. But look, let's look at how come there is an NGO called Defenders Coalition. Defenders Coalition received these huge, humongous, tremendous respect to them. I dare them just be clean on that. How come they receive this humongous amount of money prior to the Gen Z, hold on, prior to the Gen Z demonstrations. And they are the same people who received another humongous amount of money before the Tanzanian elections. And they, quote unquote, use Kenya as a base. Now, that's why I began by saying, let's peel off this onion of political interference with African democracy.
For the sake of our audience, Wakili, you're saying that whatever we saw in 2024 in Kenya, 2025 in Kenya, and what we saw in 2025 in Tanzania, actually it was not genuine agitation by young Kenyans in these two countries to fight for their electoral rights or something like that. This is a greater conspiracy theory by an international cabal?
As unpalatable as it is, yes. And you see, the larger, the bigger this whole scenario is, the harder it is for the Kenyan people or other people to believe that actually there is a force behind this. And why do I say that? Because you see, if it was organic, if it was genuine, why would you need to have a springboard? Why would you need to launch that from the Kenyan side? You did in the same NGOs, you did in the same entities, you did the same people that were the players.
Back to my question now, it is the kind of action against these young Kenyans.
I'm not endorsing it. I'm not saying that anybody should be killed.
The justification of the same. Two presidents can decide to sit down and discuss how they're going to deal with these young Kenyans, whether or not the international cabals have their own agenda. My concern is defending the rights of young Kenyans and Tanzania. I agree that fine. Some of these discussions
but let me finish this point so that he can take over. The point is now, peradventure, and I would have liked to ask to Her Excellency Suluhu and Ruto, I would have liked to ask them, in connection with that remark, is it true or have you established that indeed the Gen Z, the superficial, what we see superficially, physically, behind that you've now come to realize that there are these forces and that your remarks are directed at that target, that if they come to Kenya, you attack that target and you remove these. And when they come to Tanzania, you attack them, as it were, the international cabal.
But that's not what the presidents are talking about. They're talking about young Kenyans and young Tanzanians, and we do anticipate that in the next 1 month or 1.5 months, probably younger Kenyans may want to mark the second anniversary of what happened in 2024. And then President Samia Suluhu Hassan says she's discussed with Ruto on how to deal with them.
Fred, it's very funny that you find somebody that you think is well enlightened, the president of a nation, making such statement. And it looks to me like really, and especially trying to compare the two countries, and you're wondering, which country is she in, and which country does she think Kenya is in? Because when you say Piga, in a clip where a minister in Tanzania went to a high school that I think had demonstrated or something like that, and he was whooping those guys one by one, and he was furious, he was sued, man. I don't know whether President Suluhu is aware that in this country we pass a law that you should not cane a child or flog a child in school. I don't know whether she's aware about that.
That's how euphemism. Is that euphemism that she was using?
That's how deep we've even put these things into constitution, to a place where we're saying, look, we need to talk to our kids, we need to reason with them, we need to have them counsel for one reason or the other, even though it's not the same as what is happening in the West, like United States of America and other places, but at least we are trying, we're getting somewhere where we are reasoning with our kids. This is not a generation where you're going to use a mukwaju on, I'm telling you, for free. Because if you do that, then they will tell you, oh, we are now bordering mental issues, either with our stress level or getting to this level. I mean, they expose so much that is in the world that you cannot just try to make East Africa be East Africa and therefore try to, negotiate with both presidents and say, look, this is what we'll do. We, as a nation, Kenya, we are global. I mean, this is one of the countries that is now recognized when it comes to IT and issues of online participation in the global community. We are in the world map of some of the smartest people we have. We have issues with brain drain.
But we don't share the economics of it.
Hold on. I haven't got into the economics part of it. I'm just trying to tell you where Kenya is. And therefore, when you're still thinking that you can only just talk to Kenya as a Tanzanian, just talk to Kenya and think you've really grasped the issues that are in this country, then you're lying to yourself, yes. In my view.
My question is, because during the events of October 29th, a lot of Kenyans were caught up in between, especially those working in Tanzania, and they run businesses. We've also had instances where quite a number of Kenyans who crossed over to Tanzania for whatever reason were arrested. Some claim they were tortured. We've had similar sentiments from Uganda. Doesn't this leave Kenyans exposed whenever they cross the border? If the president of Tanzania issues this kind of threat that wakija huku mikwaju, wakirudi Tanzania wakija kwenyu mikwaju, because initially whatever happened in Tanzania was to some extent blamed on Kenyan youth.
You see, I think the biggest challenge we have is not even whether Kenyans are under some sort of threat when they cross to Uganda or Tanzania. The biggest threat we face today is mis and disinformation. A lot of what people are saying, if you read the Chande report, for instance, you realize that they had a very nuanced forensic analysis, or even the footage who were arrested were being tortured. But on the reality, I mean, if you look at the reality on the ground, we know the Kenyans who were arrested, we know what they went through, but I think it was blown out of proportion, and I think that's what the report is unearthing. And it's a landmark report, and the reason why I'm saying it's a template that can be used in Africa is simple. The methodology that they deployed and the recommendations and what is happening after that. But the broader context within which we need to understand this is, you can't listen to President Suluhu once and say that this is what she meant. Because you are Kenyans. No, let me just...
in Swahili.
No, let me just...
And I agree. I agree it was in English. We may have misunderstood.
No, that's true.
I agree with Wakili.
That's what has been
a detailed analysis of all these things, will tell you that there is a lot that Suluhu knows that as Kenyans, just imagine that we know stuff. So, if you look at the entire context of what she said within the context of the findings of that report, she probably might not even be talking about the Gen Zs. She probably is talking about...
We have the entire clip. We can play the entire clip. She talked about a particular group.
Yes. But you see, let him finish. She's probably talking about the people who are behind the turbulence in East Africa. It may not be the Gen Zs.
Yes.
It may not be. And I think we need to read deeper into this. But the second
I'll ask my director to open up the entire clip because we need to play it again.
Yes.
For context.
And I hope you'll also give us the highlights of what the report established. And then
it's very significant.
Yes. And then number two is the issue of language. I have colleagues in Tanzania, and sometimes you tell them we speak Kiswahili because you're like, they tell you, no, clearly we are getting lost somewhere. Mchawi in Kenya, today if you talk about Mchawi in Kenya, you're talking about?
A witch, a wizard.
A witch, a night runner. But Mchawi in Tanzania is a doctor. So when you talk about Mukwajo, I think we also need to frame it within the right context. And I would encourage the media to get, or Kenyans, to socialize with the entire discourse of President Suluhu, to understand her use of language.
Before we make our final comments, let's listen to that clip in its entirety, so that we can make the final comments.
Tukaa tunazungumza jinsi ya kudeal na hawa watoto wetu watovu wa adabu wanaojiita nani hilo jina hao eti na wenyewe wanajifanya ni hao wa East Africa. Kwa hiyo popote wanakwenda kupigania demokrasi. Kwa hiyo wafanye fujo huku, wachome huku, wadisturb serikali zao. Nikamwambia Ruto, we have to send firm on this watovu wa adabu hao. Tusichague wa Tanzania au wa Kenya. Wakija kwangu na chapa mikwaju, wakija kwako chapa mikwaju, ili wakae sawa.
I don't know how much simpler it can get in Swahili.
So Fred,
How watoto wetu.
There are Gen Zs in Migori, where I come from. Migori is not very far from Tanzania.
As you make your final comments here.
Yes. Actually, Tarime and Migori, we attend their celebrations, they attend ours. And listening to that, I don't think the president is talking about Gen Zs in Migori crossing over to Tanzania to go and cause chaos. It's a bigger, the context is bigger. There has to be someone. It's the same thing with the goons. We talk about goons meting violence on people. No, the goons are the politicians who sit in boardrooms and decide that we will cause chaos here. The guys who are arrested along the streets are not goons. They are vulnerable Kenyans who are looking for opportunities, and politicians are taking advantage of them.
So you're saying
and to some extent,
we've told.
And you ask yourself, why is Google, an American company, funded by the American taxpayer, sending me its platform, Google, and it wants to get my messages, my images, my everything, and then on top of that, I buy a gadget, an iPhone, for instance, and then that's an American product, and it is loaded with software that is directing me to their platforms. And you don't have a single African platform on this. So you come to democracy and you ask yourself, what is it that I'm fighting for if I'm not fighting for the retention of my resources to benefit me? Which is what I was saying, that we can get on to online these spaces, which, by the way, they are managed by them. You host your website by them. They can switch you off anytime that they feel like. You got it on YouTube, they can switch you off anytime they feel like. It is their YouTube.
That threat by international cabals has always existed.
No.
Why are we saying like now it is the biggest threat?
But Africans are waking up.
Forcing African leaders to clamp down on their own residents, own citizens because of those people?
You see, I'm saying, and I use this analogy to show you that, look, nobody's going to show up and tell you that I've come to colonize you. I've come to do. It is very subtle. It is very insidious. It is something that you have then to ask yourself at a very personal level. Why is it that I'm sitting on gold? Why is it I'm sitting on oil or even on coal? And someone is coming to actually block me from benefit from it. You ask yourself. So the Africans must wake up and ask, you ask, okay, why is it an investor has to come from outside there? And why can't we pool our own resources, our own selves, to get the mining? And how is it that De Beers, the largest mining company in South Africa, is foreign owned? Well, why is that? So as I say that, this idea that Suluhu was out there targeting, the youth, the Gen Zs of Tanzania, and telling Ruto, okay, if they show up there, you ask yourself that expression, and I like how Hezbollah put it. Decode that expression. If they come to Kenya, whack them. If they come here, I will whack them.
Is it so difficult to talk about those people?
No. You see that because you see they want you ignorant. They want you ignorant. They take your money. No. Which is why I was saying that you'll get online as much as you want.
Yes.
And they will platform you on YouTube. And when they want to switch you off, they will switch you off. Then where's your control? Where is your control?
Are we overplaying this thing? This is simple Swahili. Watoto wetu, watovu wa nidhamu.
Yeah. I don't know whether they're being paid to.
No. We condemn any anti-democratic.
Yeah, you see,
yes,
I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Because really, you cannot threaten a foreign nation. I mean, not a foreign. You cannot threaten an independent nation and tell them that this is what I want you to do. First, by even herself saying that I had this discussion, and I'm even preferring that if my people come over there, clamp them up, and if your people come over here, I wish you could have talked about the laws that are governing the nation. I wish you could have said, within the context of that, the laws of that nation, and not that you just give a blanket suggestion like that. And I'm glad that Honorable Ruto did not speak about this thing at all. But another thing that makes me a little bit happier with our president is that she is the one that approached this discussion from what she's saying, that she's the one who told President Ruto, this is how we need to deal with this thing. And because President Ruto knew the type of country she's leading, he's leading, I think he just said, this is not something I want to delve into today, because I don't think I want my people to start having this discussion. Remember, Gen Zs have died. Whether here or there, one life loss is too many. We cannot even regularize that. We cannot even make it a fun, like some people are laughing in that, dignitaries are laughing in that hall. People have died
clapping
as a result of this, perhaps this is what we're talking about.
They consider that collateral damage.
No, I'm not for the cabal. I'm not for the cabal for today. I'm talking about the literal sense of this statement that she made. You asked a question, how about Kenyans who cross over? How do they feel when they hear such a statement? How about Tanzanians who cross over this side? I've been to Tanzanians. Kenyans are living in, I've been to Tanzania. Kenyans are living in fear in Tanzania. I was there with some dignitaries at one point, who were serving in the East African community. And they complained that Kenyans are hugely being harassed. Their, work permits are not being renewed. And sometimes you have to pay a lot of money in Tanzania to even get, to go around your businesses. Some of their businesses are being threatened. I was in Tanzania. We got into some altercation, one of us. We went to a police station and we told these guys on their face at one point that how many Tanzanians are in Kenya, wachuuzi wadogo wadogo. Mukifanya hawa wa Kenya vile mnawafanya, sisi pia tutarudi kule makwetu na tuwapatafute na tutawaweka mkokorokoroni, whatever it is. That statement alone made the Kenyans to be released out of the jail where they were. And they were arrested for no good reason. You understand that? So I've been there. I've seen what is happening there. We cannot tensionalize the already friction that is between Kenyans who are there and what they're experiencing. And then the president is saying that tutawapiga mkwaju. Let's look at the law and let's say if they cross over and goes against the law, commit an offense, please arrest them and detain them within the confine of your constitution, of your laws. But don't tell us that we can piga our makwaju. That is not something we want to accept, and I don't think Kenya will accept that. All I am saying is, look, we cannot live in fear in East African community. We're already having deadlines, economic deadlines, that are having discussions over Tanzania that we don't know even whether they will be met. But it is Tanzania that have continuously negated on the agreement, our economic agreement with them because of some unknown fear. This Cold War between Kenya and Tanzania has to stop, and people have to know that whether you have the borders or not, people will still trade. Ugandans have had it very, very easy. They know very well that with Kenya they can grow, and Uganda has grown tremendously as a result of the businesses that they're doing between Kenya and Uganda. All we have to say is this: the president of East African community must know that we are one community. We were once a country, and we can trade, we can live together, we can buy property, we can do anything without threat. And if that's what they will say, Kenya and East Africa will grow.
Divided by the colonizer.
President Samia Suluhu Hassan
who are not there now. We are the ones now that are propagating.
Pigwa mukwaju. If you cross the other side, pigwa mukwaju. That was her statement. Well, let's take a short break. TV47 continues after this.